grew up on Richard Pryor. You can't even go back and talk about the book he wrote.
Yeah.
And then what I got to do sometimes is explain, which I hate in big arenas, that this is a thought police thing, and I do not like it. But when I use these words, this is my intent behind those words.
Yeah.
Wow.
So as long as you understand my intent, I still get people, well, just don't say it. And I said, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, but they take it out of context and put it on Twitter or put it on Facebook.
In today's politically charged entertainment industry, few figures stir as much controversy or admiration as Tim Allen. Known for his iconic roles in Home Improvement, Toy Story, and Last Man Standing, Allen has evolved from a beloved comedian into a cultural flashpoint, especially in the context of Hollywood's shifting views on comedy, free speech, and political correctness. His refusal to self-censor or issue hollow apologies has put him at odds with a system that increasingly demands public figures toe an ever-changing ideological line. Allen's comedy has always had an edge. Drawing inspiration from legends like Richard Pryor and Lenny Bruce, he comes from a lineage of comedians who used humor to challenge societal norms and push boundaries.
Because of saying a word, and it's one of those things where it's like it's kind of unbelievable.
It's actually disturbing on a fundamental level. It's gotten to the point where literally there's part of me, a deep part of me, that just F it, bring it on. If you want to cancel me, go ahead. I mean, I can't.
Pryor, for instance, was raw, unfiltered, and painfully honest. A blueprint for comedy that provoked thought and laughter simultaneously. Allen adopted this ethos early in his career, believing that a comedian's role was not just to entertain, but also to reflect uncomfortable truths. But that model of comedy is now under siege. In the current cultural climate, where offense can be taken from a single word or misunderstood joke,
I don't like anybody telling me what to do. And lately, the left wants to tell everybody it's the we all know this. You should stop telling me what to do. You go do it. You want to support stuff that the government should stay out of? You go do it. No one's stopping you from paying more taxes.
Allen finds himself increasingly out of step, and yet defiantly so. Allen laments the environment where words are more scrutinized than the intention behind them. He shares that he often finds himself having to explain what he meant by certain words, an exercise that he finds both frustrating and antithetical to the spirit of comedy. Despite clarifying his intent, some still tell him simply not to use certain words, a suggestion he outright rejects. This phenomenon, which he likens to thought policing, has become central to his public image. Allen isn't apologetic. He's not trying to adapt his style to fit the prevailing social climate. In fact, he doubles down, using humor to highlight just how absurd things have gotten. Tim Allen's attitude towards backlash is unusual in a time where celebrities rush to issue carefully worded statements the moment they say something controversial. Unlike others who scramble for public forgiveness or rebrand themselves to avoid cancellation, Allen remains defiantly authentic. If anything, he seems amused by the outrage. Whether it's poking fun at identity politics or telling a politically incorrect joke, Allen refuses to walk on eggshells. For example, he once recounted overhearing a 13-year-old at Disneyland tie his identity to skillets. Yes, skillets. And couldn't help but share the moment publicly. He wasn't mocking the child, but instead pointing out the absurdity of how far identity labeling has gone. The internet, however, was quick to react with outrage, branding Allen as insensitive or even a bully. And what did Allen do? Absolutely nothing. No apology, no statement. Just a shrug, a smirk, and the quiet confidence of someone who's seen it all before. In a culture obsessed with being offended, that kind of reaction is almost revolutionary. Perhaps the best example of Allen's friction with mainstream Hollywood is the case of his sitcom Last Man Standing. The show, which featured Allen as a conservative family man navigating a liberal world, became a hit. At one point, it was the second most popular comedy on ABC, trailing only Modern Family. Then, out of nowhere, the network pulled the plug. Despite strong ratings, a loyal fan base, and a committed cast and crew, the show was canceled, a move many saw as politically motivated. The character's views and Allen's own public persona didn't align with Hollywood's preferred narratives. So, rather than address it, the network simply dropped the show. But the story didn't end there. Fox, recognizing the show's value and Allen's devoted following, picked up Last Man Standing and gave it new life. The show came back stronger than ever, and the message was clear. Allen wasn't going anywhere. If anything, attempts to silence him only amplified his reach. It was a turning point, a demonstration of how cancel culture can sometimes backfire. The irony only deepened when Disney, the same company that replaced Allen with Chris Evans in the Lightyear movie, brought him back to reprise his role in the Santa Clauses on Disney+. Despite his outspoken views and refusal to conform, Disney couldn't ignore the fact that Allen was quite simply good for business. But in typical Tim Allen fashion, he didn't quietly return to the role. During the Santa Clauses, Allen delivered the line, "Merry Christmas to all," a phrase that, in this bizarre modern age, was deemed offensive by some online critics. Twitter erupted in outrage, interpreting it as a politically charged jab. The idea that a Christmas greeting in a Christmas show could be seen as controversial perfectly encapsulates Allen's ongoing critique. Comedy and culture have become so hypersensitive that even the most benign statements can trigger backlash.